I suppose you look through keyholes, too.
Hey everyone! Welcome back to Couch Potatoes, the show that brings history and pop culture together because someone's gotta do it. Let's talk Hollywood. Pre-code Hollywood, in fact, which is basically just a fancy term for Hollywood before the censors. During that time, Tinseltown brought us stories full of drugs, murder, mayhem, fabulous cursing, gratuitous sex, and nudity. Actually, it's a whole lot like modern-day Hollywood. It was an era in American motion pictures enduring from 1927 to 1934 and became much more prominent as movies with sound, better known as talkies, reshaped the landscape. William H. Hayes, a Presbyterian elder, had been tapped to restore a bit of prestige to Hollywood after it had survived a number of scandals. But even as his Hayes Code of Conduct was adopted in 1930, film crews of Hollywood originally turned a blind eye to the new mandate until the platform was more rigorously enforced in 1934. If you saw a pre-code film in the late 1920s or early 1930s, you'd be bombarded with stories where a woman was forcibly robbed of her virtue. There were stories of abortion, prostitution, illegal drug use, extreme roughhousing, and what was considered the granddaddy of them all, romantic or sexual relations between blacks and whites. In that era, bad guys usually got away with it and always laughed in the face of authority. These projects tackled storylines that were completely taboo at the time but might get you an Oscar in today's market. 1934 saw a group of American Catholics campaign against what they deemed the immorality of American cinema, saying that these films promoted bad behavior. The group raised enough eyebrows that the American government began researching motion pictures. Seeking to quiet Catholic dissension, lawmakers issued a general order complete with the promise of jail time to any studio that ignored the Hayes Code, now known as the Production Code Administration. The new set of rules included an immediate ban on all images depicting same-sex intimacy. Blatant uses of profanity were blacklisted, but the PCA was never clear on which words were frowned upon. I guess you could say hell, but was frowned upon. Race mixing on camera was highly forbidden and remained so well into the 1960s, which is why cowboys and Indians were always seen as the same group underneath a ton of makeup. Showing criminality was fine as long as the offense occurred in a flashback, a dream sequence, or was something that could never happen in real life, like putting a neighbor's car in your pocket and trotting off into the night. By the end of the film, crime had to be punished, and audiences couldn't feel the least bit sympathetic to those committing it. Never show members of the clergy as mean or villainous. Then, there's adultery or sexual relations in general. Outside of marriage, sex was to be portrayed as sleazy and sure to cause a big mess of trouble for the character. Evil is wrong, good is right. There were no gray areas. If it was on film, it had better promote family values, or you might find yourself breaking rocks in a chain gang. The new code of conduct was heavily influenced by the Catholic faith, and those influences had to be kept secret, or an anti-Catholic bias among moviegoers might rear its ugly head. Hollywood elite found censorship prudish and out of line. Liberal periodicals, such as The Hollywood Reporter, attacked it in 1931, likening the overbearing measure to the Salem witch trials. The Great Depression made life difficult for the new codes. Those who could afford a ticket wanted films that escaped reality, movies with rude or racy content. Anything was welcomed as long as it helped audiences put aside their worries for an hour or two. Gone was the carefree lifestyle of the early 1920s. So producers and directors vowing to ignore censorship were celebrated as having the courage of folks who had participated in the Boston Tea Party. Although, throughout the economic disaster, Hollywood themes of personal achievement, self-reliance, and overcoming adversity became very popular. But the constant promises from politicians of an economic upturn took its toll. American audiences were becoming increasingly jaded. Tinseltown took advantage of their cynicism, releasing political fare that had deep social issues like Gabriel over the White House or 1932's The Dark Horse. Scripts showed politicians as liars, incompetent buffoons, or scoundrels. As Adolf Hitler came into power, leading up to World War II, studios feared that the rule book would slice into their profits overseas. Hitler may not have been popular in the States, but Germany was still a powerful importer of American motion pictures, and Hollywood wanted to keep them happy. The German ban on Jews eventually led to a reduction of Jewish actors working in front of American cameras. On other continents, the market was more exotic, aiming to explore the unknown or the forbidden. The core of such films as Africa Speaks was the sexual attraction between blacks and whites, where audiences overseas received packages containing images of naked black women. The idea of 1931's The Blonde Captive, where a woman was abducted by Aboriginal Australians, was not that she'd been kidnapped, but that she enjoyed living among them. The code continued, and more, William Hayes argued that movies were being used as propaganda. He left the industry in 1945, having served 24 years behind the desk. Eric Johnston soon took his office and quickly rebranded censorship as the Motion Picture Association of America. In 1956, Johnston led one of the first revisions to the Hays Code. He allowed the use of certain storylines that had long since been rubber-stamped as forbidden, such as abortion or drug use, as long as it's in good taste. That was his motto. The following decade saw the introduction of the film rating system that we've all come to know. From G to XXX, film ratings limited censorship and gave moviegoers the power to decide what images were appropriate for their own eyes. Did you enjoy the episode? If you did, let me know by leaving a like and a comment. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you'll never miss another installment. I'm Erickson Steele, and I'll see you next time on Couch Potatoes, the show that brings history and pop culture together because someone's got to do it. See ya!